A Primetime special event. 2 exclusive blockbuster interviews. Charles Gibson with Pete Rose.
You're now saying, for the first time, publicly, yes, I bet on baseball.
I bet on baseball in 1987 and 1988.
Diane Sawyer and Charlize Theron. Her extraordinary transformation into a movie monster. Tonight, for the first time on TV, talking about the killing in her own family.
What did your mother do? She acted in self-defense. Oh, Diane.
Pete Rose. He lied about gambling on the sport he loved, so baseball banned him for life.
It's like I died, and they knew I died, and they didn't want to bring me back. They were just going to let me rot.
14 years later, a painful confession. But you haven't heard it all yet. Listen and decide, is he really a changed man?
Is it a sickness, Pete?
Glamorous actress Charlize Theron. See the ultimate extreme makeover as she morphs into a monstrous killer.
She's either a monster, or she's crazy, or she's a psychopath. But life isn't that simple.
A dazzling, haunting performance. Does it come from a dark place inside her own past?
There were 3 people in that room. I know what happened.
Tonight, deep secrets, lies, and confession. From ABC News, this is Primetime Thursday with Diane Sawyer and Charles Gibson.
Good evening and welcome to an all-new Primetime Thursday special event as we ring in the new year of 2004.
And we begin tonight with a woman everyone is talking about, Charlize Theron, one of Hollywood's celestial beauties who just may walk off with the Oscar next month for her wrenching portrayal of a serial killer. It's a complex new movie called Monster, but that's just part of what we'll be telling you tonight, because as you've also heard, Charlize Theron has a complex and wrenching story all her own. She was just 15 years old when her mother shot her father. For the first time on television, she'll talk about that night. But we begin this with transformation. How do you make a monster out of this movie star? The movie, The Italian Job, and the girl with the face of pure satin is Charlize Theron, who plays a safecracker with nerves of steel. And who could forget that sex scene with Ben Affleck in Reindeer Games?
Look at you, it hurts.
And what about her ambiguous, inviting beauty inside her house rules?
God, you are beautiful.
For nearly a decade, she's been one of Hollywood's certified goddesses, 5 foot 10 inches of traffic-stopping red carpet designer-clad glamour. So, how did it happen that this is the woman chosen to star in a movie about this woman? A drifter, prostitute, and America's first notorious female serial killer, Aileen Wuornos. But that's exactly the choice director Patty Jenkins made.
I did ask her one night, I said, why? You know, and she said, in a very sweet way, she just said, they gave me all of these names of these other women, and they were really great actresses, but then I just thought, I could kick their ass. But with you, I wasn't so sure. She's like, it would be a really good fight. But,
Is she right?
I don't know. I think we should get some baby oil and see who can hang on the longest, you know?
Are you tough?
I can take care of myself.
Theron started preparing for the role by gaining 30 pounds in 3 months, 8 Krispy Kremes at a time.
She was only 5'3", and I couldn't imagine. She walks into the courtroom and she carries herself in this kind of, you know, larger than life way, like a blowfish almost. But it was just her way of surviving.
Her skin was spray painted to look mottled and damaged.
Never made me feel more beautiful in my life.
She also had special molded teeth. The result? Simply staggering. Look, that's the real Aileen Wuornos on the left. On the right, one of Hollywood's greatest beauties, simply transformed. Theron says just as important, what she learned about a murderess and how it transformed her under the skin.
This is a woman, you have to understand, who never experienced love in her entire life. Her mother abandoned her when she was 6 months old. She got raped when she was 13, gave the baby up when she was 14. At the time that she was a teenager, she was sleeping in these woods in the snow.
At one point, she does go out and look for a job.
She tried so many things.
Can I just give it to you straight? See, the truth is I'm a hooker. And I'm trying to clean my life up here, you know, go straight and Christian and all. So if there's anything that you can help me with,
So you've been convicted of a felony?
Yeah, but see, that was because I was...
That's not going to even matter, because the best you're going to get is factory work. Hey, Todd, do we even have any factory work? Sunbeam?
Hey! Hey!
You think she was crazy?
No. I think crazy is too easy of a way to explain it. She'd gone through so much up to that point that I think the closest thing that I could relate her to was like a stray dog.
As the movie recounts, Wuornos took to the Florida highways, hitchhiking, turning tricks. Wuornos has said one night she was violently, anally raped. Here is the real murderess on the stand in court.
He was choking me and I was holding it like this. And he said, "Do you want to die, slut?" And I just nodded no.
She said it was self-defense that caused her to pull out her gun and kill her first victim, Richard Mallory. Theron says when making the movie, they decided not to rehearse that rape scene. So there, in the dark, she was uncertain what she'd find.
I didn't make contact with the actors who were going to play the Johns. And so we shot that scene from the beginning.
Bitch! Do you want to die? Do you want to f***ing die?
After that, Wuornos began a psychotic downward spiral. Another killing, this one to steal the car of the man who picked her up. And then compulsive murders, one after the other. Eventually, it would be the one person she had trusted, her roommate and lover, Tyra, who helped convict her.
When Tyra was testifying against her in the courtroom, I mean, there's footage of her just breaking down like a 9-year-old child. And it was like it still didn't sink through. Like she still couldn't believe.
This is the scene at trial's end, in the real courtroom. The verdict is read, and Wuornos explodes with rage.
Somebody who was raped to death.
She was sentenced to death.
Executed until you are dead, and may God have mercy upon your course.
Scumbags of America.
Here again, Charlize Theron in the movie.
And may you rot in hell, sending a raped woman to death. And you're a bunch of scum, that's what you are.
On the day before Eileen Wuornos was executed, here she is. She seems ready to end her cracked life.
I'm okay. God is going to be there. Jesus Christ is going to be there. All the angels and everything.
One of my favorite quotes is by Gandhi when he said, "An eye for an eye will lead to a blind world." And why I love this story is we label people so easily. She's either a monster, or she's crazy, or she's a psychopath. But life isn't that simple. I just don't believe we're that. The human spirit is much more complicated than that.
Far from the bright lights of Hollywood, her childhood in South Africa, and a single life-changing moment witness a killing.
There were 3 people in that room. I know what happened.
When Primetime returns.
Friday, X-rated private tapes starring your favorite Hollywood celebrities. They say they're outraged. They don't want you to see them. But do these celebrity sex tapes break or help make a career? Friday, the home movies you were never supposed to see. Wait until you see this 2020, Friday at 10, 9 Central.
Primetime Thursday continues with Charlize Theron and the place she calls home, South Africa.
Small farm, fields, willows, weeping willows, a lot of animals, a lot of dirt. dirty feet all the time. No Nintendo, no computers, my mom's record player, no television really. Was given a lot of freedom, was constantly encouraged, and a lot of love.
Charlize Theron started out as a dancer, but as she rose toward 5 feet 10 inches, that became impossible. At 15, she won a local beauty pageant, then an international modeling competition. But modeling was, well, kind of a bore.
Just, you know, how do I put it? I like to talk. And I have a lot of opinions about a lot of things.
Opinions at first she could only express in her native language, Afrikaans. So she bought a one-way ticket to Los Angeles, lived in a low-rent hotel, and learned to speak American by watching The Love Boat. Her first real movie job, a 3-second appearance in a slasher film.
I was like one of the kids running through the field, being slashed and killed, and I called my mom and I said, I'm an actress. I've made it.
After that, a slightly bigger part. 3 whole minutes in the movie That Thing You Do. There she is.
Yes, I'm Tina. Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks. He had moved me so much in my life as a child and I had a crush on him.
13 years later, she has that glossy resume, starring as strong, risk-taking women. The latest, the tour de force in Monster. She's also become one of South Africa's favorite daughters.
Rumors follow me, so you might be my next boyfriend.
She was also brave enough to make a public service announcement about a taboo subject in her country, rape.
Every 26 seconds, a woman is raped in South Africa.
And when the government took the announcement off the air, Theron went to court and got it back on. She says she got her confidence from one person in her life, her mother, Gerda. I asked her to repeat in her home tongue, Afrikaans, something she said once about her mom.
I loved what you said. You said, my mother raised me not to be afraid of life.
My ma het my grootgemaak om nie bang te wees vir enigiets in my lewe nie. And it's true. It's one of the greatest lessons she ever taught me.
But the story is not a simple mother-daughter fairy tale. Her father's name was Charles. It's how she got her name.
Charles, yeah, Charlize. Yeah.
Tell me about your dad.
My dad was a big guy, tall, skinny legs, big belly. Could be very serious, but loved to laugh as well and enjoyed life. He also, you know, he had a disease. He was an alcoholic.
But she says among their friends in South Africa, divorce was simply not an option, even though the marriage was troubled.
You know, he was a gypsy, so he would just kind of disappear for a couple of weeks. And it was never fear till I got older. He never hit me. My mom was the disciplinary in the house.
Never abused you in any way?
No, he was a verbal abuser. What I think alcoholics face if they don't do something about the disease, it's a downward spiral. And it just gets worse and worse. And they don't even know what they're doing anymore. And the terrible thing is that everybody in South Africa has a gun.
But he'd shoot the locks off the doors?
No, I mean, we're now getting to a very specific thing that oh, God.
But for the first time on television, when we return, Charlize Theron will talk about that night. We return now to the moment that changed Charlize Theron's life forever. A moment she said you can only redeem by how you live and whom you love.
Oh, Diane. You know, the tough thing about things like this is that everybody now knows it's out. You know, for years I just said that he died in a car accident, and because it's not just about me. If it was just about me, I think I could talk about it. But there's so, you know, my mother is involved in that, and she has never asked to be in the spotlight, and she's never asked for any of this. So
it is too painful for her to recount graphic details moment by moment, but police documents from June 21st, 1991 tell the story. Charlize Theron's alcoholic father and her uncle are heading home after a night of drinking. An aunt even calls to warn Charlize and her mother that he is coming, and he is agitated.
Nature gives you instinct, and I knew something bad was going to happen. But
You were 15.
I was 15, yeah.
On arrival, her father begins shooting, first at the locked gate to the home, then shooting through the kitchen door and angrily banging on the door of Charlize's bedroom, saying, according to her mother's testimony, "Tonight I'm going to kill you both with the shotgun." He fires his gun again into Charlize's room. In reaction, her mother grabs her own handgun.
What did your mother do?
She acted in self-defense.
She shot Charlize's father, killing him and wounding the uncle. According to Charlize's sworn police statement, she asked her mom what happened, and the answer came back, "Charlize, I shot them. I shot them."
It happened. I wish I could change it. I can't. Nobody can change it. That's what happened.
Were you on your mother's side immediately and only? Or was there a point at which you had to wrestle with anger and shock?
I was there. I was there. So, you know, I saw what happened. No, never. I mean, there were 3 people in that room. I know what happened. And I know that if my daughter was in the same situation, I would do the same thing. No.
She was also there in the room where her father lay.
But you're 15. You can't even compute what you're seeing, I'm sure.
We both were still in such a, you don't think it's over. You kind of still think that there's a threat or something terrible still going on. So I think for me it took a long time to sink in what had really happened. You just don't think stuff like that will ever happen to you. It's terrible human nature. You always think it happens to somebody else.
It was Charlize who called the police. In the days following, her devastated mother insisted that Charlize leave and resume her life as a student and promising model, while she, her mother, stayed back home to face the investigation on her own.
And for her to say, go make something of your life, go do something. That was an extremely brave thing for her to do. Those are the sacrifices, you know, that I think you do for your children, and she always did that. She always put me first. You know, I'm off in Europe living this high life, you know, in the fashion business, being fabulous, and my mother's back in South Africa sitting on a farm that's about to be taken away from her because we're bankrupt, financially ruined.
But you didn't worry about a prosecution or?
Sure, that was always in the back of my head.
It took years and a court hearing, after which the Attorney General ruled no further proceedings would be taken, that the mother had acted to defend herself and her daughter. Charlize Theron has said she has moved on, though she bears the scar of that night on her heart like a tattoo.
It's a part of me, but it doesn't rule my life. It's not something that...
I can't quite believe. Rule your life, no, but I can't believe there are a lot of times in most days that you're not still there.
I'm very lucky. I'm very, very blessed because I get to, through acting, I get to make my work very personal. I think that has been my survival. I really don't go through my life walking with this thing and suffering. I don't. I have an incredible life. I'm one of the luckiest persons. I love my job. I have beautiful people around me. I'm in love with an incredible man. My career is beautiful. I mean, those are the things that move me. Those are the blessings that I almost feel guilty having. Everything else, I get to deal with in my work. You know, not a lot of people can say that. So it's good. Things are great.
Yet it cannot be an accident that Theron loves movie roles that explore danger, ambiguity.
It's the world that I know. I'm dying for a comedy, by the way. Anybody out there?
Bring this girl a comedy.
Bring me a comedy. I like to laugh. Please. I can be funny, too.
By the way, if you're wondering who that incredible man is, it's actor Stuart Townsend. They've been together for 2.5 years.
Stuart Townsend.
A miracle. I've just really scored big time. The lotto was scratched and I won. You look good.
And now, next month is expected to bring Theron her first Oscar nomination for Monster, the film that explores the mysterious intersection of choice and fate, the dark road from the past into the future.
So you've got one free pass to go back and do something differently in your life. For you to do it differently, what would you do?
There's only one thing. There's only one thing. And I would force my parents to get a divorce. That would be it. The rest of it, it's been an incredible journey.
Charlize Theron has already been nominated for a Golden Globe Best Actress Award for her work in Monster, which opens around the country tomorrow. We'll be back.
Next, the bet is on. Hear the confession for yourself and answer the question. Will baseball let Pete Rose come back?
I couldn't get a response from baseball for 12 years. It's like I died. And they knew I died and they didn't want to bring me back. They were just going to let me rot.
When Primetime returns. Here again, Charles Gibson.
A little over 14 years ago, Pete Rose made what is no doubt the worst bet of his life, that he'd never have to tell the truth about his gambling. Now, as you've probably heard, he has confessed, finally admitting that he bet on baseball and on his own team. But is his confession enough? After years of lies and denials about the gambling that caused his lifetime banishment from the game he loves, that led to the exile he calls My Prison Without Bars in a new book, should we start believing him? You decide. Rule 21 in baseball, subsection D. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Any player, umpire, or club, or league official or employee who shall bet any sum whatsoever upon any baseball game in connection with which the bettor has a duty to perform shall be declared permanently ineligible. Permanently ineligible. That's posted in every clubhouse in baseball, isn't it?
A lot of players don't pay much attention to the fine print.
But that's not fine print. That's not infield fly rule. That's not.
It's not as big as you.
It's not when a game becomes official and whatever. That's the most important rule. That's the rule that goes to the integrity and to the authenticity of the game. So why would you violate it?
Well, I wish I could answer that question, but I just can't. I was wrong. Stupid. Worst thing I ever did in my life.
You say
I've had to live with that for 14 years too, Charlie.
14 years, since 1989. That was the year reports reached baseball that Pete Rose was in violation of Rule 21D, that he was betting on the game and betting on his own team. Pete was pulled out of spring training and summoned to New York to meet with incoming commissioner Bart Giamatti and Giamatti's number 2 man, Fay Vincent.
He was just as charming and effervescent. And they're all jockeying around the way you do with a big baseball player. I finally said to him, Mr. Rose, look, we have evidence that you bet on baseball. Have you ever bet on baseball?
They asked me did I bet on baseball, and I said no.
He said, I'm not that stupid. He said, I would never bet on baseball.
And I told him I bet on football, and they said, we're not worried about that.
I thought it was right, that he was just too smart. Nobody in their right mind would bet on baseball. And we believed him.
Everyone wanted to believe him, and many did, as Pete denied betting on baseball from 1989.
I'm happy to look in the camera now and say I never bet on baseball, and I never bet on Cincinnati Red baseball.
Right up until recently.
Is your position still that you did not bet on baseball?
Sure, sure.
But now, finally, Pete Rose is ready to tell the truth. For 14 years, your case has hovered over baseball. Did you bet on baseball?
Yes, I did, and that was my mistake, not coming clean a lot earlier.
You're now saying, for the first time, publicly, yes, I bet on baseball.
I bet on baseball in 1987 and 1988.
Did you bet on your own team?
Yes.
Did you ever?
I believed in my team. I mean, I knew my team, but it never altered the way I tried to run the game.
Did you ever bet against your own team?
No. That'd be the last thing I'd ever even consider. That's because I want to win every game.
Winning has always been a passion for Rose. For 24 years, he played baseball with enthusiasm, determination, and zest. He was always possessed by the spirit of winning, and he backed down to no one. He would pile drive the catcher in an all-star game, an exhibition, if that's what it took to win. He set records, plenty of them.
Left center field, and there it is! Pete Rose does it! 4,192!
That broke Ty Cobb's mark for the most career hits and caused Rose himself to break down. But the record Rose cherishes most, 1,972 games he played in when his team won. He played on the winning side in more games than any major leaguer ever.
I had to be aggressive to be successful because I was a little short in talent. You know, I didn't have Mickey Mantle's speed or Willie Mays' power.
Rose driving the ball to right field. Extra base hit. There it is.
I had a passion for the game. I looked at my passion as an obligation for the fans.
Mike Schmidt, what a play to get him!
Hall of Famer Mike Schmidt played with Rose and against him.
Pete probably was the first player to bring the headfirst slide into vogue. And he used to not just dive into the ground into the base, but he would dive up. You know what I mean? He would get about a yard off of the ground, and boom, he'd hit the ground, and you know, get filthy dirty, get up and slap the dirt off of himself, and you know, make some kind of a gesture, and the crowd would go nuts.
How's that?
Thank you. And that one to John, J-O-H-N.
Pete today is 62. Maybe there's a bit more stomach and a bit less hair, but he's still a star. His legendary career as a player reflected in all the memorabilia, some of which he had to sell to pay off gambling debts. The gambling on baseball, Rose claims, started when he stopped playing and began managing the Cincinnati Reds full-time.
I think that Pete Rose missed the rush of playing baseball, and gambling gave him that rush. Gambling really served the need to have some game going all the time.
In 1987, Michael Sokoloff was a young sports writer covering the Reds, and he saw Rose taking up with a rough crowd.
You know, he really had some tough-looking characters around him. They weren't baseball guys, and we learned later that they were, you know, bodybuilders, steroid pushers, bet runners.
Tommy Giosa was one of those guys.
We'd go to the racetrack, and you know, to drop 10,000 a night, you know, wouldn't be a big deal for him. And we didn't think it was a big deal. I mean, it's Pete Rose.
Point, stretch to the lead.
But by then, Rose was gambling heavily on sports and was getting into trouble.
Pete was in big-time debt, and Pete was desperate for money, and Pete thought, I'm losing money on football, I'm losing money on horses, but I know baseball. let me start betting on baseball and get out of this hole that I'm in.
Tell me how something like that gets out of control to the point where you're betting the sport where you know the penalties are so drastic.
I can't remember the first time I made a baseball bet, but I don't think when I made that bet that I says, now what's going to happen to me if I get caught? I don't think I ever considered that.
Investigators would later say that using runners and bookies, Rose bet hundreds of times on baseball and other sports, sometimes up to $15,000 a day. What Rose didn't bet on was that baseball would hire a tough former prosecutor, John Dowd, to look into the charges against him.
And within a few days, he called me and said, Faye, we have a big problem here. He said, there's evidence all over the place that Pete Rose bet on baseball.
I feel like a fresh piece of meat.
Word of the investigation leaked out, but Rose kept denying betting, even under oath. 6 times, by my count, in that deposition. He asked you.
Once I say it, I'm not going to retract it. I'm going to continue to say the same thing.
The evidence against Rose was mounting, including betting slips said to be in Rose's handwriting, and records of phone calls from the Reds clubhouse.
Every night, Pete Rose would go into the clubhouse at 7:15 and call the bookie. Now, we knew it was the bookie because we had the number, we had the operator's name, and we also confirmed with the bookie that that's when Rose called him.
By August 1989, even Rose realized the game was over, and so Vincent wrote up an agreement.
He would agree that he would leave baseball for life, but he wouldn't admit, and also very importantly, he wouldn't deny the allegation that he bet on Major League Baseball.
Under the rules of baseball, Rose could apply to be reinstated after 1 year. But in reality, nothing would happen unless Rose came clean, told the truth, and showed he'd reformed. With no confession, Rose would spend the next decade in baseball purgatory.
I couldn't get a response from baseball for 12 years. It's like I died. And they knew I died, and they didn't want to bring me back. They were just going to let me rot.
But now, is his confession enough to get him back into the game?
I'm the only guy that knows what happened, regardless of what the investigator said.
And are his gambling days really behind him? When Primetime continues.
Cold. My sinuses feel like they're going to explode.
Aisle 5.
My allergies have my sinuses all stuffed up.
Aisle 5.
Now tell them where you feel the pressure.
Here. Aisle 5.
Come on.
Sinus misery? Get Sudafed. Nothing stronger at relieving even your worst sinus symptoms. Not even a prescription.
I'm so congested.
Sudafed, aisle 5.
Sudafed, prescription strength sinus relief. And for a sinus headache, try maximum strength Sudafed, sinus headache. In Italian cooking, everything must be filled with happiness. Even the lasagna. So Olive Garden introduces new chicken and portobello mushroom lasagna. Layers of chicken, portobello mushrooms, and cheese topped with tomato Alfredo sauce. Or new hearty 3-meat lasagna, yours with endless salad and breadsticks. Our 2 new lasagnas starting at $9.95. Olive Garden. When you're here, you're family.
Look, I finished our taxes.
Really? Are you sure we did it right?
Yeah. See, with this TurboTax software, I just answered simple questions and it put the answers in all the right forms.
Did we get all our deductions?
Even ones I didn't think of.
Right. What if we made a mistake?
Calculations are guaranteed accurate.
Are you sure the IRS got it?
I got an e-file confirmation.
So that's it? We're done?
Yep, got a refund today.
I've always liked that TurboTax.
Really?
TurboTax. Taxes made easy, taxes done right.
Tonight, Pete Rose finally tells all to Charles Gibson. But tomorrow on Good Morning America, it's your turn to ask the questions. Go to abcnews.com right now. Send us your questions for Pete Rose. What do you want to know from him? Tomorrow morning, Pete Rose takes the hot seat, answering your questions live only on Good Morning America.
In his new book, Pete Rose writes, "For the last 14 years, I consistently heard the statement, if Pete Rose comes clean, all will be forgiven. Well, I've done what you asked," he writes. "The rest is up to the commissioner." But is Pete's admission now enough to get him reinstated to the game? And has he really given up gambling for good? October 1999, Atlanta, the third game of the World Series. Pete Rose has been allowed back in a ballpark for the first time in 10 years to be honored as one of baseball's all-time great players.
Pete Rose does it! 4,192!
But even on that night, Rose was again confronted with the issue.
Are you willing to show contrition, admit that you bet on baseball, and make some sort of an apology to that effect?
No, Jim, not at all. I didn't think it was going to help me to tell Jim Gray or any other reporter, because there's only one person that I had to get to and tell, and that was the commissioner of baseball.
In part because of the fans' enthusiasm, and also the intercession of former teammates like Mike Schmidt and Joe Morgan, Rose finally got his private meeting 14 months ago with current Commissioner Bud Selig.
He said, well, what happened? You going to tell me what happened?
And finally you said to him, yes.
Not finally, right away. I mean, I didn't beat around the bush. And I elaborated as far as, you know, what I could remember as far as how often and stuff like that. Not every day, not every game.
Did you walk away from that meeting, Pete?
Good feeling.
With a good feeling?
I took this million-pound weight off my shoulders.
Confession being good for the soul.
Yeah.
Is there any agreement? Is there any understanding with the commissioner's office, if you admit it now, that they would reinstate you?
None whatsoever.
No guarantees?
No guarantees. So I could be sitting out on the limb for the next 20 years.
And what Rose said privately then, he says publicly now.
It's time to clean the slate. It's time to take responsibility. Knowing what I know today, I mean, I'm 14 years late.
14 years late in saying, yes, I did bet on baseball. Is it a sickness, Pete?
It can be. I mean,
there are gambling addicts.
Yes, but if you're addicted, how come I stopped? I don't think I ever gambled out of my means. You know, I didn't take the house payment money or the gas and electric bill money or that kind of money and gambled. That was a part of my life that you can't change. You wish it hadn't happened, but you can just guarantee yourself it won't happen again.
Even though he now admits betting on baseball, Rose still denies a gambling addiction, and he still denies much of the most damning evidence that baseball gathered against him.
I never picked up my phone and called a bookmaker and bet on a baseball game from the clubhouse. Never.
Rose also still denies that those betting slips were his, even though an FBI handwriting expert says they were.
I know that those betting slips weren't mine because I didn't have betting slips like that. I'm the only guy that knows what happened, regardless of what the investigator said.
What can I say? I mean, I don't think he's coming clean, and that's too bad. I think Pete would have been so much, and still would be much better advised to tell everything he knows. Why is he holding back? There's no mileage in that.
But in fairness, all that is a debate about past history. How about today? When first banished from baseball, Rose was told if he was ever to be reinstated, he would have to reconfigure his life. So has he done it?
I'm not going to go back to gambling. I mean, it's as simple as that. I got a little bit on the ball.
How can baseball be sure?
Well, they can never be sure. I mean, all you can do is give your word, and if the commissioner would ever give me a second chance, there's no way I could let him down. There's just some things you can't do.
Can't do? Well, there are also some things friends tell him he shouldn't do. Recently, for instance, Rose bought part interest in a racehorse. He spends time at the track, and he says he does bet on the horses. Nothing wrong with that, perhaps, but friends wonder if it's not like an alcoholic going into a bar.
I said, Pete, look, if you're going to become reinstated into baseball, the next day you can't be at the track. You being in gambling environments is not good. If you're Pete Rose and you're trying like hell to become reinstated into the family of baseball, and the issue was gambling in your life, you damn sure need to figure out a way to give it up.
But Mike Schmidt does think Rose understands that, knows what he has to do, and is willing to do it.
And I start out with admittance and remorse and honesty, and it has to be from the heart. And he needs to speak to his fans, and then he's going to have to speak to the Hall of Famers. And that's all going to be hard. But Pete truly is remorseful and understands that he's going to have to make amends with all of those entities for this all to go away.
Former Commissioner Fay Vincent isn't so sure.
I think Pete's failed to understand this is not about himself. And his future in baseball is all about his ability to see the other side of the issue, namely, what's in baseball's interest.
But the way Pete Rose sees it, his desire to return to the game is in baseball's best interest. He feels he's paid his debt and can now help the game. He wants his place in the Hall of Fame, yes. But even more, he says, he wants to manage again and manage the Reds.
That's my hometown, Cincinnati. Obviously, that's my favorite team, the Cincinnati Reds.
You want to participate in the game?
Sure. It drives me crazy, like when I put the Reds on, and there's 20,000 empty seats. I want them to be like the Cubs, or like the Yankees, or like Boston. The seats are for asses, and you got to have an ass in every seat every night.
So what should the commissioner do? No one disputes Pete Rose is one of the greats, but he gambled on his game, on his team. Is 14 years banished from the game enough punishment? We thought the last word should go to Pete Rose. Just look at that camera and say to the public and to the commissioner, as clearly as you can, what's the case for reinstating Pete Rose? Why should they reinstate you?
Because I understand that I made a mistake. And there's not a damn thing I can do about that mistake. We can rehash it all we want. And if you make a mistake and you understand how big the mistake was, and you're willing to rectify that, and which I have. I mean, the furthest thing from my mind right now is making a bet on anything. I think people have a good idea that I'm sincere about knowing what I did, and I shouldn't have did it. And you know, I lied about not coming clean about betting on baseball. But when I look you in the eye and tell you that phase of my life is gone and will never come back, I mean that with all sincerity in the world. That's why if the commissioner would ever give me a second chance, there's no way I could let him down. I owe baseball. Baseball don't owe me a damn thing. I owe baseball. And the only way I can make my peace with baseball is taking this negative somehow and making it into positive. It's the only way I can do it.
Major League Baseball officials have told us they're going to take Pete Rose's book and his statements tonight into account, but that no decision has been made about his return to baseball, either as a manager or about his eligibility for the Hall of Fame. If you have more questions for Pete Rose, you can join an online Q&A. at abcnews.com. And you can see him live tomorrow on Good Morning America when he'll be answering some of those questions you submit online. We'll be back.
For the latest video highlights, log on to America Online, keyword ABC News. We'll be right back. She's the friend who can make you laugh or melt your heart, not to mention melting brads. Next week, Jennifer Aniston, real and revealing, talking to Diane Sawyer about saying goodbye to old friends. Her new movie, her marriage.
Who's more neurotic, you or him?
Her break with her mother.
Oh my God, where did you get that? I'm so confused.
And all the antics that come from the funny friend next door.
Oh, Jennifer.
That's next week on Primetime.
And that's it for tonight. We thank you for joining us in our first program of the new year. I'm Charles Gibson.
I'm Diane Sawyer. We'll both see you tomorrow on Good Morning America. Until then, good night.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Gene Hackman, Will Smith, the ABC Monday Movie of the Week, Enemy of the State, Monday.
Next on 7, the mayor makes plans to replace Kobo Center, and the president wants to send astronauts back to the moon and beyond. Action news seconds away.